standalone books, welcome back to this book nook. If I sound a little bit stuffy, I think I've got a bit of hay fever today, but hopefully it doesn't hold us back from filming this video, which is recent books I've added to my want to read shelf video. So I have, I think, 12 books I just want to really quickly share with you, just keeping you up to date. And also I've recently really gone into watching people's like TBR videos again, and it's giving me heaps of good book recommendations. I've absolutely binged people's 2022 like favorite books, and because of them I've had some adds to my shelves. So I guess this is just me putting out content, partially because I like making these kind of videos. It gets me really excited for the books I want to read, but it also hopefully gives you some books to add to your TBR as well. I'm going to get straight into this. I'm going to try really hard to keep this concise and not ramble. And also, if you are someone, in the spirit of not rambling, if you are people who leave comments in my YouTube with recommendations, I do always look them up, and I'm trying really hard, like I said, to diminish the amount of standalone books on my want to read shelf. So I'm only picking the ones that really stand out to me. So just so you know, like, I'm totally looking into them. Some of them are now like on my radar. Some of them made it to my want to read shelf. So just so you know. The first book I have added to my list here is Light from Uncommon Stars, which is written by Rika Aoki. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. And this is an adult science fiction fantasy with LGBT elements in it as well. Now, our main character is called Shizuka, and she made a deal with the devil. Always a good start to any blab for me. Now, her whole thing is she wants to escape damnation, and the way she does that, this deal with the devil, is that she has to lure 7 brilliant violinists to trade their souls for success. So she's like, yo, you want to be successful? Just come talk to this mate over here of mine and he'll make sure you're successful. You just have to give him your soul. Now, our main character, Shizuka, manages to deliver 6 of these, and it's on the 7th one. She can feel freedom, but it's on the 7th one when basically she's like, oh gosh, can I do this? That's a standalone, by the way. Moving into the beginning of the series, so one of the series I've added to my series to start shelf is Anatomy. Now, you may have seen this around. I think I was first aware of it when I saw it on Bookstagram, and this is a love story. YA, it's historical, it's set in 1817, and our main character is called Hazel. Now, she wants to be a surgeon more than anything else, but it's 1817 and Hazel is a woman, so they don't really let her follow her passions, follow her intelligence, because, you know, sexism. But then she meets this fella called Jack. Now, he's a resurrection man, and I've been led to believe that that means he deals with bodies. And so you can see where this is going on. Hazel needs to practice. Over there, that man's got some bodies that don't have any people, like, belonging to it. So can we strike a deal? Because the thing is, Hazel needs to pass this exam. She needs to pass this exam in order for her to like be enrolled in surgical school. And she's made a deal with her lecturer who kicked her out for being a woman. But of course she needs bodies. So her and Jack strike up a deal, but then Jack also has problems going on in that there's really creepy skulky people chilling out around his graveyard. Bam, bam, bam. What happens next? I don't know, but I love this idea of it being a kind of gruesome tale, but also slightly feminist. I know, I obviously want to read it, it's on my list. Talking about feminism, next up we have a collection of feminist poetry. It is called Woman Without Shame by Sandra Sissinus. Now this, I'm pretty sure, is the author of The House on Mango Street, which is a novella made up of, what do you call them, vignettes that I read at the end of last year when I was trying to make my 2022 Goodreads goal, which I didn't, but it's not the end of the world. But either way, I was really intrigued by her writing, Sandra's that is, when I read Mango Street, so I looked up her other works and found this poetry collection. And the blurb does it best, to be honest. It is a moving collection of songs, elegies, is that how you say it? Elegies, and declarations that chronicle her pilgrimage towards rebirth and the recognition of her prerogative as a woman artist. It just sounds really empowering. I added it to the list. Next, we have a mystery thriller for the adult audience, and it's called Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Rayburn. Oh my gosh, I'm really doubting myself over pronunciations recently. And like, look, all you need to know, it follows 4 60-year-old female retired assassins. They're retired, but then it's kill or be killed. Someone's hunting them down. They're 60-year-old woman squad assassins. Like, yes. Yes. I also have The Thief Memory by Sunyi Dean added here, and I'm not even joking. When the blurb for this, can you guys see that? It's one line. It's one line, and all it says is, the hero must journey across the desert to capture the thief of mystery and retrieve her stolen memories, but what she finds in the end may destroy her. Also, it's a short it's under the genre of fantasy short stories, and I want to read more anthologies this year, more short stories. So there we go. Editing me really quick. I've was like, where did I pick this book up? Why Sunyi Dean? And it's because Sunyi Dean also wrote one of my favourite books of 2022. I know I didn't do like a 2022 favourite books wrap up video, I'm sorry. But she wrote The Book Eaters. And I loved The Book Eaters, one of my favourite books of last year. I will forever recommend it to fellow readers if you like books about books. But anyway, this isn't a recommendations video. I'm just letting you know that's where I got the name Sunyi Dean from. It's because I read one of her books and loved it. The next one is actually a graphic novel / manga series. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's a manga series. It's called Heaven's Official Blessings, Tianguan Sifu by Mo Zhang Tongzhu. And the translator is Suika. It's a fantasy romance queer series, and whilst last year I finished Tokyo Ghoul and Demon Slayer, I'm really looking to expand my manga experiences beyond, I think they all kind of fall under the shonen genre, the like boys fighting. I really want to expand my horizons, and this one sounds really interesting to me, so I thought I would hopefully get around to giving it a go this year. So this follows our main character, Celian. He was a crown prince who did so many good deeds. He got like promoted to godhood, but those who rise can always fall, and he does. But 800 years I should say, like in the mortal realm, he manages to rise back up into godhood. And when he's there, there's lots of other gods and just people, I suppose, who are really angry and feel like he needs to prove himself. So he gets sent back to the mortal world and has to basically denounce, eradicate ghost schools and the things that shouldn't be on Earth. But it's there that he meets San, I'm pretty sure, San Lang, a young man with whom he feels an instant connection. It says here, San Lang is clearly more than he appears. What mysteries lie beneath the carefree smile? And it just sounds like it might be a nice way to start reading some romance manga, because it also has that fantasy thing that I read a decent amount of. So it's going to be familiar, but also slightly steering me down a new path and experience. Like many readers, I too like a book about books, which is why I've added The Library of Mount Cha by Scott Hawkins onto this list. It's about a missing god, a library with secrets to the universe, and a woman too busy to notice her hat slipping away. The other like cincher for this for me is that it sounds like there's an element of competition to it. So Carolyn is our main character. She was a human once. She lived on Earth once until somebody that they being her and her like adopted siblings, I suppose, call father. What's the word? Like abducted them. So for years she's been in father's library, learning, reading, doing all this stuff. And sometimes Carolyn is like, wait, is father God? Because creation comes from this library of his. Until one day father, perhaps aka God, disappears. He might be dead, nobody knows, but his seat of power is free. So Carolyn gets herself ready for battle, and apparently other people do so too, and she kind of starts to forget she's human, like starts to lose her human qualities. It sounds like we might have a morally grey main character in a battle for a seat at a library, which could also be God. I mean, come on, don't you want to read it too? It sounds so good. A new series that sounds really interesting is called The Books of Babel and Babel. Stop doubting yourself, Bethany. And the first book in this is called Standalone Ascends. The author, by the way, is Josiah Bancroft. For me, this ticks the box. I don't really know if it's a trope, but like of a really organised, layered system. In this case, you have the Tower of Babel, where it's like a cake and different things happen on different layers, and it's immense, like a whole world within all these different layers. I once had a dream where I jumped off a cliff into a lake. Under the lake, I could open my eyes and see, and under the lake surface was an entrance to this cave, and you go in the cave, and it was a sudden world of many different layers. Maybe I should write a book about that dream. I don't know, but it satisfies that like requirement for me, the structure. And honestly, again, this is a case of the blurb does it more justice than I could. We have Thomas Senlin and his wife Marriott. They arrive to the tower for their honeymoon. However, they get separated. Senlin is determined to find his wife, but to do so he'll have to navigate madhouses, ballrooms and burlesque theatres. He must survive betrayal, assassins, the long guns of a flying fortress. But if he hopes to find his wife, he will have to do more than just endure. The quiet man of letters must become a man of action. Sounds good. Sounds good, right? Okay, one that I can almost guarantee at least half of the people watching this video have seen or heard of before is The Poppy War. This is by R.F. Kuang and is the first of another series called The Poppy War series. Now R.F. Kuang, I believe, has actually released a book recently called Babel. I might have even already added it to my list somewhere, and then I've seen people loving that and then picking this up as well, and it just got me intrigued by it all, to be honest. This one satisfies my craving for like Mulan-esque. It is a Chinese epic historical military fantasy with treachery and magic, so immediately I was interested. So also it ticks the box of like an educational setting. So our main character is called Rin. Now Rin is a like war orphan, and she passes this test to get into this like fighting school of sorts with grace. Like she does it so easily. Everyone's surprised, especially when they realize she's not cheating, and so she goes. But the thing is, she's female. She is, I believe, a woman of color. Yeah, a woman of color. She comes from poverty, and so she gets picked on. But it is here that she discovers her ability for like a crazy level of shamanism, and she uses this secretly to help her get through her learnings. She goes through her learnings. It doesn't quite say whether she finishes school or not before a war. We're on the verge of war, and it's of course her who like is the one who can save everyone. Next up, The Blade itself, written by Joe Abercrombie. Yep, the beginning of another series. This one is about a barbarian who has finally run out of luck. But he's not the only character. There's four. We have Nobleman Captain Luthar, who is an officer. We have Inquisitor Glocta, who is a cripple turned torturer. And we have the Wizard Bayaz. So we have four different POVs I'm anticipating. And they're all linked together by some sort of murderous conspiracy. It's kind of vague about what happens. The blurb is literally like paragraphs on each character, but they all come together somehow. There's a conspiracy, and I'm kind of intrigued to see if it's slightly giving Three Musketeers, but like only in the sense you've got a band of dudes. I don't know. It's on my list. I'm interested. Another one that has been added to my list and is also the beginning of a series is M.K. Jemison's The Fifth Season. This was Books and Lala's favourite book of last year, and I find her and I often have similar taste when it comes to like certain genres. So then I read the blurb, I'm like, you know what, I think I will like this. Now it begins with Essen. Essen is our mother, our main character, and she comes home one day to find that her husband brutally murdered their son and then kidnapped her daughter. So the whole purpose behind her journey is to save her daughter, but around her, war is breaking out, madmen are going crazy and killing everybody. Like, the society around her is collapsing. So this falls under the fantasy dystopia subgenre, and that's kind of all the blurb gives you, but I'm here for it. I'm here for more stories this year about mothers. Maybe because I'm getting a little bit older, not that I consider myself old, but like I'm noticing that I'm drawn less and less to young adult fiction and younger main characters, and more to adult and older characters. Seth Dickinson. Seth Dickinson, the traitor Baru Cormorant. So basically, Baru is the name of our main character, and on some day, she's going to look up into the sky and see sails. I thought it said salt for a second, that's why I did a double check. She sees red sails on the horizon everywhere. Red sails, they're the Empire of Masks, and basically think of them as colonials. They're coming in, they're taking over Baru's land, they're reaping it, they're wrecking it, they're taking ownership of it whilst destroying Baru's own culture. However, Baru is patient. She recognises that there's a long game, and she somehow gets like quite trusted by these Empire of Mask people, and they send her to this distant land called Ardwin, a snake pit of rebels, informants and seditious dukes. Ardwin kills everyone who tries to rule it, but to survive, Baru will need to untangle the treachery and conceal her attraction to the dangerously fascinating Duchess Tane Hu. So yeah, there is also like a LGBT romance mini subplot. But Baru is a savant in games of powers, as ruthless in her tactics as she is fixated on her goals. In the calculus of all her schemes, all ledgers must be balanced and the price of liberation paid in full. Oh, voice crack. Full. Next up, we have Pandora's Jar. This was recommended to me by one of you beautiful people, Zach. Thank you, Zach, for your awesome recommendations all the time. As I've already mentioned, I really want to read more short story collections, and whilst this isn't necessarily short stories, it is a collection of 4 Greek stories, and I'm fascinated by Greek mythology, but I can never keep them straight in my head, and so learning about these things through novels is like the best way for me to learn. The 4 great mythic sagas are retold in this one: the Trojan War, the Royal House of Thebes, Jason and the Argonauts, and Heracles. I wanted to say Hercules, but that's not how it's spelled. Heracles. So she puts the female characters on equal footing with their menfolk, and the result is a vivid and powerful account of the deeds and misdeeds of Hera, Aphrodite, Athena, and Circe, and away from the goddesses of Mount Olympus. We look at Helen, Clytemnestra, Jocasta, Antigone, Medea, who sing from these pages, not the men. So, cool. The other one that made me really laugh when I saw the name and then I looked into it, I'm like, oh my god, yes, Zach. A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. Doesn't that just sound interesting? So basically our main character is Mona. She is 14 years old, so this might be more middle grade than young adult. But Mona's family doesn't really have magic, except in the fact that they have a mean sourdough starter. So she can literally make like gingerbread dance. Her magic comes with the baking. However, her life is turned upside down when she finds like a dead body on the floor of her family's bakery. Turns out there's an assassin. This assassin is preying on people with magic, and Mona is in his sights next. Dun dun dun. Oh, it just sounds great. Next up, the Book of the Most Precious Substance. And I'm going to say straight off the bat, this sounds very R16, R18 in, not necessarily that it has spicy scenes, it's just adult content from what I gather on the blurb. Let me explain. So we start with Lily. She's a book dealer and she has no sex life. Yep, this is all about sex and sexual pleasures and sexual deeds and everything in between. So Lily basically has like what sounds like a failing book business. But in her research, Lily stumbles across the Book of the Most Precious Substance, which is rumoured to basically have like sexual powers, like sexual spells written in it. Some people, like some of Lily's customers, are willing to pay Lily a fortune for it. So of course, naturally, she goes on a quest to try find this book. It takes her from New York to New Orleans to Munich to Paris, searching for this book. It's an addictive erotic thriller about the lengths we'll go to get what we need. I'm just fascinated by it and I want to read it. That is it. that brings my total of series I want to read to whatever this number says, and standalone books to whatever this number says. So that's where we're at. I will be intending on doing this video every time I collect another 10 books in my want to read list that are separate from the books, like my anticipated release books that are coming out each quarter of the year. So let me know if you're going to add any of these books to your own list. Let me know if any of these books remind you of other books that you think I should look into. I always appreciate the personal recommendations. So thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. Enjoy all the places you go in your own reading adventures, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.